If you're pouring your heart into your podcast, but still struggling to turn those listeners into paying clients, I've got something just for you. Imagine having a clear, simple plan to turn your listeners into buyers without relying on a huge audience or spending hours on social media. That's exactly what we'll create together in a podcast profit plan discovery call. During this free 20-minute call, I'll help you discover more opportunities for profit in your podcast and give you the next best step to turn your show into a client attracting machine. If I've got an offer that will help you expedite this process, then we can also discuss working together. Book your free podcast profit plan discovery call now by going to podcastingformoms.co/profit plan or by clicking the link in the show notes. I can't wait to chat with you. I want to tell you about almost every single launch client that I've ever worked with. They come to me fired up, ready to start their podcast, and within the first 5 minutes of our conversation, we're talking about microphones. Which one's the best, whether they need a pop filter or not, if their USB mic is quote-unquote good enough, or if they need to upgrade. And I get it. The equipment talk feels productive. It feels like you're doing the thing. But here's what I've learned after working with launch client after launch client. The ones who obsess over the gear are usually the same ones who haven't figured out what purpose their podcast is actually serving yet. And that is the thing that will make or break your show in the first 30 days. So today I'm going to be telling you what actually matters and what you can stop stressing about entirely. Let's get into it. Welcome to Podcasting for Moms, the show for moms in business ready to start, grow, and scale a podcast that turns their listeners into buyers. I'm Jenny Sonesson, a podcast strategist and fellow mom entrepreneur. You're in the right place if you want to learn how to start and grow a podcast that attracts your ideal clients and really does the heavy lifting for you when it comes to selling your offers, all while balancing life as a busy mom. Are you ready to create a podcast that grows your income, impact, and influence? Let's make podcasting work for you, because as moms, we know how to get things done. All right, let's jump into the episode. Hey, and welcome to Podcasting for Moms. I am Jenny, your podcast strategist and producer, and this is the show where we talk about using podcasting as your primary marketing tool to grow a real, sustainable business without being glued to social media all day long. If you're in your first 30 days of podcasting or you're on the cusp of launching your show, then this episode is for you. Grab your favorite beverage and let's get into it. So here's the thing that no one tells you when you start a podcast. The metrics that feel the most exciting are actually usually the ones that matter the least. So your download numbers in your first 30 days, they're probably going to be a bit lower than you expect. That's not a failure. That is just math. You're brand new. But what happens is that new podcasters check their stats every single day. They see these small numbers and then they start to spiral. They think the podcast isn't working and they start questioning whether they should even continue. And in the meantime, they haven't even stopped to ask themselves whether their content is actually good, whether it's connecting with the right people, or whether their listener knows what to do after they hit play. Download numbers in month one tell you almost nothing. What you need to be building in month one is a foundation, and downloads are not that foundation. So now let's talk about what the foundation actually looks like. So if it's not downloads and it's not the perfect microphone, what actually does matter in that first 30 days? So there's 3 things. That's it. Just these 3 things. So the first one is getting comfortable being the host. So this sounds obvious, but most people wildly underestimate how much of a skill hosting actually is. Talking into a microphone by yourself, staying on track, sounding like yourself and not a robot reading a script, that takes a bit of practice. In your first 30 days, your only job on the mic is to get the reps in. You're not going to sound perfect, and that's totally fine. You're going to sound way more natural in episode 10 than you do in episode 1, and more natural in episode 20 than you did in episode 10. The reps are the point. I want you to give yourself permission to be a beginner at the hosting part while you're also a beginner at having a podcast. That's just part of the process. Okay, number 2, focus on good content. So good content in 1 month doesn't mean it's viral worthy. It means, does this episode actually help the person that you're trying to help? Is it clear? Is it specific? Does it deliver on what you promised in the title? Your content should be solving real problems for real people, not broad, fluffy topics that could apply to anyone. You want your episodes to be specific and useful for the listener that you actually want to reach. And I always say 1 listener, 1 problem, 1 episode. So if you're trying to help everyone with 1 episode, then you end up helping no one. And then number 3, create a clear listener journey. And this is the big one that most new podcasters completely skip. And it's the reason that so many podcasts don't actually lead to business results, or also the reason that so many podcasts drop off, because they feel like they're not getting any results from their show, so they just end up quitting. Your listener truly needs to know what to do next. So after they finish your episode, what happens? Do they know who you are? Do they know what you offer? Do they have a place to go if they want to learn more from you? And this is where connecting your podcast to your business goals comes in. And I want you to be clear. This is not a year 2 thing. And I want to be clear here. This is not something we need to focus on in year 2. This is something you want to be focusing on from day 1. Your podcast should have a purpose beyond just existing. It should be connected to something, whether that's a service you offer, a program you sell, an email list you're building, whatever it is, so that when the right person listens, there is a natural next step for them to take. Because here's the reality. A podcast that doesn't connect back to your business is a hobby, and there's nothing wrong with hobbies, but if you're here, I'm guessing that you want your podcast to be more than that. You want it to actually grow and get in front of new people who are then going to work with you in your business. So from day 1, know your call to action, know where you're sending people, and make that very clear in your episodes. Okay, so now the fun part. Now we're going to talk about what you're giving yourself permission to stop obsessing over. So the microphone. A solid USB mic in the $75 to $100 range is completely fine to start. I recommend checking out the Samsung Q2U microphone. You can find it on Amazon. It is relatively inexpensive, and it is the microphone that I recommend to all my clients and the microphone that I still use to this day. I will make sure to link it down below so you guys can go check it out if you haven't purchased your mic yet. But your content and your growth strategy are what are going to grow your podcast, not your equipment. I've seen people with $400 microphones put out terrible content, and I've seen people with entry-level setups build incredible audiences. The mic is not the thing that's going to get you listeners. The second thing you can stop worrying about is your download numbers in month 1. So I kind of already said this, but it bears repeating. Do not let those early stats talk you out of something you haven't really given a fair shot yet. I would say give it at least 90 days of consistent strategic effort before you evaluate whether it's working or not. And sometimes it needs even longer than that. So don't sell yourself short just because you're not seeing immediate results. And the third thing you can stop worrying about is whether your voice sounds weird or not. I feel like everyone thinks their voice sounds weird. Listeners don't hear what you hear when you play yourself back. So if that is something that you are getting super hung up on, I want you to just keep going and stop worrying about what your voice sounds like, because you are the only one who really cares about what your voice sounds like. Other people likely don't even notice. Okay, so let me bring this all together. In your first 30 days, the 3 things that actually matter are getting comfortable behind the mic, creating good, specific content that solves real problems for your ideal listener, and building a clear listener journey that connects back to your business goals. Everything else, like the gear, the stats, and the perfect branding, that all can come later. And honestly, some of that doesn't even matter as much as you think it does, period. The podcasters who build real momentum aren't the ones with the fanciest setups. They're the ones who show up, do the work, and make sure that their podcast is actually connected to something that matters in their business and for their listener. Now, if you're in the season of launching your podcast and you want support doing this right from the start, strategy first, business connected, built to actually grow, then I want to invite you to check out the Podcast Launch Bootcamp. It's a free 3-day bootcamp specifically for moms who are ready to launch a podcast that's connected to their business goals from day 1. We cover content strategy, your listener journey, your first episodes, all of it. You can find the link to join the bootcamp in the show notes, or you can head to podcastingformoms.co/bootcamp to learn more. All right, that is it for today. If this episode was helpful, I would love it if you would share it with a mom you know who is thinking about starting a podcast or who's in those early days and might need the reminder that they're doing better than they think. I'll see you next week. Thank you for tuning into Podcasting for Moms. I hope today's episode gave you the tools and inspiration you need to make your podcast work smarter, not harder. If you love what you heard, be sure to subscribe and leave a review. It means the world and helps other moms in business find the show. For more tips, resources, and support, head to podcastingformoms.co. Remember, you're not just building a podcast, you're building your legacy. Until next time, friends.